What it do? What it do, everybody? How y'all doing out there this evening? Welcome to another edition of Real Talk for Real Men. Wednesday's edition, a Hump Day edition. So you know how we do it. We show up on Wednesdays and we have some serious conversation about all things related to relationships, love, sex, marriage, divorce, cheating, gossip, romance, taboo. Y'all know how we do it. It's no different today. So we got a good one for you today, talking about the new sexual revolution. You know, what's going on out here now. In an effort to try to stay up to date, and try to stay current, I wanted to talk about something that hopefully kind of relates to some of the younger generations. You know, if you're a normal follower, regular, fan of the show, then we get into some hot topics, and in most cases, it's related to my generation, and so in an effort to try to talk about things that's going on current, because for you, those of you who may not know, I'm out of the game to a certain extent. And so I want to have this conversation tonight, and hopefully we'll get some buy-in from some people who are out there doing their thing. So let's bring on our co-host, first of all, Miss Tasha Mack. Y'all know her well. What's going on, McMack?
What's going on, Black? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, pretty good on this hump day. How about yourself?
I can't complain. I'm glad it's hump day.
Yes, yes,
Let's keep it moving forward.
There you go. I always like to say, when we get to this point where we're looking at each other, we know we got this week on the run.
That's right.
So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I see I got my sister in the waiting room. Let's bring on Sherry. Y'all know her very well. What's up, sis? How you doing?
Hi, y'all. Hi, Tasha.
Hey, Sherry. How are you?
What's going on, baby sis?
I'm good.
All right. Good to see you. Good to see you. Glad you could be here. I'm going to give a few moments, for anybody else that might want to join before we kind of get into it. And this is a good topic tonight. So, we're going to talk about some things that, as I did the research, I always like topics where I learn some things. And so this was one of those topics where, and doing my research, there was a few moments in there where I was like, wow, I didn't know that, or I didn't see that from that perspective. So I hope you guys get something out of it. I'm looking forward to participation. Tasha, we always know that if it's just you and I, we'll have that long conversation with just you and I. We got sis, anybody else that come on, it's a blessing. I will state also that, if you don't know already, I put the link into the show's commentary section. Anybody is welcome to come on. Mm-hmm. I think because sometimes people tune in on a regular basis and they see some of the same faces, which I love. I love my group, but I think sometimes that can intimidate people to think that they're not welcome, or if they don't come on right at the beginning. That's not the case. Ours is an environment with an open door policy. You're able to come on, even if you can't stay the whole time. We appreciate any input. Come on late, come on early, pop out. Life is going on all around us, so we know how it is. With that said, for those out there who want to come on camera, you are most welcome. If you decide that you don't want to come on camera, I also thank you and appreciate you for putting your comments out there, questions out there. That's what keeps the show moving, keeps it alive. It keeps me on my toes, and it keeps us always moving in those unexpected directions. So I love that as well. I see that we got Candace say that she's coming in. So this is a classic example. She'll make it with us here in a little bit late. But, when she gets here, we're going to welcome her, and she's going to jump in and get in what she fit in. That's how we do it here on Real Talk.
Absolutely.
So, yes, sir. So I want to mention as well that, if you haven't been watching not just this show, but TFG Media, man, I tell you, it's getting bigger and better all of the time. On Mondays, I appear on Brenton Haynes show. We talk politics, current events, conspiracies, all type of craziness. On that show is Kenneth, and so that's the sportsman. So it's part of the TFG Media Network. We're trying to build something big and something great here. So tune in, not just to my show, to all the shows. So I invite everybody to participate. Show that you're down with us. When you have African American people trying to do something positive, boom, support it, support the cause. So, and I haven't said this in a long time. Continue to invite family and friends. Just because you've subscribed, it doesn't end there. Please ask others to tune in, to continue to subscribe to the channel. That's how we grow and get bigger. Make sense?
Yeah. And also make sure, if you don't want to be on camera, but you want us to talk about something, send in those topics and we will discuss it.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that, Tasha. Which brings me to the topic tonight, the sexual revolution today. So I always try to share with the audience how we came about this topic. Tasha and I, we kick around topics on Sundays. It's our day where we meet and we throw out all kinds of possibilities, things that we've gathered through the course of the week, suggestions, things that just are on our mind. And this is how we come to these topics. And this particular topic, Tasha, you tell us how we got here.
I wish we could see the video, but I think they took it down and it wasn't even bad. So it was a series of videos on TikTok, because I'm always on TikTok, that this guy was discussing with some coworkers the difference between friends with benefits and, I'll say, F buddies, because we are just freshly in.
Okay.
So he was discussing the difference, and he felt like some of his younger coworkers were getting the two confused, and he wanted to go in and explain exactly what each one was. And he went on to say like what a friends with benefits was for him, how he defined it. He defined it just as it was, friends with benefits with the possibility of it being able to grow into something else, and F buddies just being exactly that. You only link to get down. Well, that led to other things because there's all these new topics and terms out here, and that created this whole idea that came to be, from Black Bear, and we wanted to see, or wanted to put it out there. Do other people think that this is the new sexual revolution? Is it the way that this generation is defining themselves?
Absolutely. And so she laid it out completely. And so that was the conversation which led to this show right here, because Tasha said it perfectly. I wanted to really do an investigation at this point to see if we are and what we could define as a sexual revolution. Now, when I use the term sexual revolution, before I get into what this generation believes it is, what do you think about, Tasha and Shuri, when you think about a sexual revolution? What comes to mind?
Those major get together, those major events that you can go back to in history and really point to, like, yeah, that was a sexual revolution. It was all about it was very liberating, and I think that's where we are right now. Everything is about liberating and being positive and confident. And I think of Woodstock, I think of the Freakniks, I think those different eras that we can pose to, like, yeah, some stuff went down, and I think that's where we are right now.
Absolutely, and I'm gonna talk about those specifically. Sherry, when you hear the term sexual revolution, what do you think about? What's up, Carlos? How you doing, my brother? What do you think about sexual revolution when you hear that term?
Like Tasha said, like pretty much what's going on today. How pretty much all the terms, to be honest with you, that they calling all these things out here, but they not, the situationships and entanglements and all this kind of stuff,
Okay, absolutely. I think that's relevant. And so, to Tasha's point, sexual revolutions is when there is a generational shift in the attitudes and the mores or morals about how people think and feel about sex. And Tasha, we're gonna only talk about our lifetime, I ain't going back to the 1920s here. But in the 1970s, there was Freaknik. Now I was too little to participate in that. But ironically, I can think back to being a child and watching my older brothers and sisters as this was happening. Because think about it from this perspective. Coming out of the civil rights era, where my parents, I should say, these would be for a lot of you guys, your grandparents, we went from a place where they didn't talk about sex. You probably heard this from your grandmothers. There was a time when you wouldn't even say, "Oh, she's pregnant." There was terms like, "Oh, she got a seed, a bun in the oven," and all these different expressions. Her aunt, if they talked about a woman being on her cycle, her aunt's coming to visit and things like that. Because it just wasn't discussed. And all of a sudden, we hit the 70s, and when you think about the 70s, we think about the big afros, the bell bottoms, the disco era. What's going on, Dizzy? But we think about movies like Saturday Night Fever. We think about Studio 54 in New York City, where all of a sudden there was this culture shift about how we felt about sex. And the younger generation at that time, they was like, you know what? We're going to talk about these things. It was reflected in the movies, the music, the way they dressed, and you damn sure saw it and how people act. So I remember seeing my brothers getting ready in the mirror with the John Travolta look, with the shirt cracked down to his navel, standing in the mirror, getting ready to get it on. And he was going out, and he wasn't going out just to dance. He was going out to have sex, because for the first time, young people were stepping forward and saying, this is how we get down, and I know I'm looking at, Tasha and Sherry, you guys might be too young for that. So, okay. So what was the next shift? So Tasha brought up a good term that we recognize here in the South. Sherry, you'll probably have to talk about what you experienced in New York, but that shift in the South, how many of you out there who are from the South who remember the Freaknik era? I live here in Atlanta, and at that time, so we talking about the 90s now, in that time, we talking about a shift where, oh my God, think about the music, from the window, we had a shift in sexual attitudes and morals back then. And I remember DJ says, what's up? What's going on, DJ? How you doing, my brother? But yeah, when you came to Atlanta back then, oh man, it was a sight to behold when we was in that Freaknik era, because the music, and again, the way they dressed, and the movies, they dictated a whole different shift at that time and how young people viewed sex. The dances changed. And so for me, those was my glory days, of when men dance with women, really dance with women, where you got up on them close. And I'm not talking about that 1970s old school belly rubber, but I'm talking about when the women bent over, showed you what they was working with, and you went to work with them back then. That was my era right there, So sis, how was they doing it in New York, at that particular time? What was happening in New York, for example?
Well, as you know, like you just said, parties were better back then because you actually went and you danced with as a couple, But now I don't party like that because you go there and it's a bunch of men standing and a bunch of women. You understand?
Well, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to what's changed, but I'm talking about at that time in New York, while we in the South was kicking it with 8 Ball and MJG, what was happening on the New York scene, musically. I want to see if you can remember what was popping on the New York scene.
Well, back then it was like Black Street, you know what I'm saying? They, that type of stuff was popular. You know what I'm saying? But it changed drastically.
Absolutely. And so we're definitely going to get to that. And so absolutely. So I'm a New Yorker, for you guys that don't know. So at that time, Sherry's right. Uptown Records, the New Jack Swing era was kicking off, but that was still a time when Men and women danced together close. They got freaky. This was the beginning of R. Kelly, the greatest artist who ever lived. Let me stop right there. No, y'all know how I feel about R. Kelly. And when I say that, people need to know I'm not including Michael and Prince in that conversation. But this was the beginning of the R. Kelly era and, the bump and grind. You know what I'm saying? And so we're talking about that sexual shift at that time, because think about how music changed on a serious note and the things they were able to say and discuss at that time. Welcome, Candace. What do you got to say? And you came in at this part where we're talking about when the sexual revolutions were started to shift, from the 70s of that generation, Woodstock, to all of a sudden we got into the 90s, the Freaknik era. What do you remember about that time?
Well, around that time I was 11, I guess.
You just a baby.
So
you just a baby.
I do remember making, we used to make up drills or dances to R. Kelly's song Bump and Grind. I remember thinking Silk, it was so nasty for them to say, let me freak you up and down. I was like, oh,
absolutely.
Mommy, absolutely. On the radio.
Absolutely. So your vision as a little girl was kind of mine from the 70s, watching my brothers I was talking about. DJ, my brother, he DJ said R. Kelly is the GOAT. He said, I don't know Robin. You know what? I'm gonna have to steal that from you, DJ, because maybe that's the better way to say it. I don't know who this Robert guy is, but R. Kelly, I damn sure know who he is. So he is the GOAT. Kama says, but in the 80s was the era where my brothers would break dance and the girlies would be mad. So yeah, this was all during that time. So here we are now, and we lived through that, and all of a sudden, now Sherry, let's talk about this current shift. And we lost her. But let's talk about this current shift that we see happening now. Because Tasha started off by talking about TikTok.
And it's now.
Oh man.
So
this is their version of Woodstock. Mm-hmm. When you go to these new festivals, because for me it was the Essence Festival, but now you go to Coachella, and I'm sure they got some other things going on. But think about how this young generation dances with each other, how they relate to each other. And that's what brings us to this conversation today, where we're talking about their sexual revolution. So now, Sherry, what do you see when you look at this young generation in terms of their attitude and their methodology when it comes to sex? What do you see?
Like I was just saying earlier, this is all new for me, like the way they deal out here now, because I don't know. Sometimes I don't know the boys from the girls, and the girls is calling girls bro and all this kind of stuff, and they don't want to have no titles. They don't, I have a almost 32-year-old daughter, and I don't know, maybe it was her upbringing, but she do have a boyfriend. You know what I'm saying? Like these girls, they don't do that like traditionally. That this your girlfriend, boyfriend, and you know what I'm saying, having certain respect for each other, and in that aspect, I ain't got no man. This era is like I don't have a man. I'm whatever. We can slide for some. That's why you hear them talking about $40 and all this kind of stuff and all that. And see, it's just I don't know. It's disgusting to me.
Okay.
But maybe you call me green.
Okay.
So maybe I'm just too green for what they dealing with out here these days. I don't know.
Okay. So Candace and Tasha, what do you see? What's your observations when you look at the current dating sex scene out here amongst these individuals? And to set some parameters out here, to be fair, we're talking about probably the 18 to 24-year-olds, just so you know. We're kind to keep it fair. That's not to say that people clearly date in their 30s and 40s, but the generation that I'm inquiring about is them 18 to 24, those young adults, and even though we know teenagers date as well. So, but we're talking about these young adults that's right smack dab. This is their time. So when you look out at that generation, Candace and Tasha, what do you observe? What do you see when it comes to their attitudes and their methodologies when it comes to how they deal with sex?
I'll say I see two sides. I see one side that is very open, sexually fluid, and not wanting to be shamed for how they are sexually. And then I see the other side that's still kind of modest. They with dealing in the education system, we deal with people 18 to 24, and so there are some that are responsible, and they look at us. I guess I'm the millennial, so they look at my generation as too free at times. So it depends. I see two sides though still.
Okay. Tasha, what about you?
I think it's far more open now, and that's because their grandparents were the ones going to Freaknik, so they were raised by some freaky grandparents, and now their grandparents are only in their 30s and 40s for a lot of them. They're real young, so it's far more open, far more about, well, just do what you want to do. It doesn't matter. Have a good time. Than it was even when I was growing up. It's far more open. It's sleep with whoever makes you happy. Do whatever makes you happy without any regard for consequences or anything. It's just whatever you want to do in that moment, or
Okay.
whoever you want to do in that moment.
Okay. And that's fair. And that certainly for me was kind of how I looked at it until I've done a little bit of research, and it opened my eyes and made me look at things a little bit more. But so far, nothing's off base, which brings me to what you see scrolling on the screen, the Netflix and chill attitude versus the hookup culture, because this is the generation that's actually popularized the millennials. They're the ones that have popularized that term of the hookup culture. So which brings us to what you were talking about the
The
TikTok video.
millennials or the zillennials?
According to my research, the millennials are the ones who popularize hookup culture.
So not
You
the
know,
18 to 24 then.
right. They're the
Okay.
ones who popularized it. So because when we go back and we think about Netflix and chill, when that movie came out, remember Justin Timberlake did the whole movie with Friends with Benefits and things like that. But it's the millennials that are given credit. Now, another study might say something else, but according to what I studied, the millennials are the ones who popularize the hookup culture. And so I know for me, when I think of Netflix and chill versus hookup, and Tasha, you brought up how they got these new terms. And the one you mentioned, I had to look it up. How many of you out there heard the term sneaky link?
I
I had never heard of it.
Yes, I've heard of it. That's the new term now.
Okay, so Candace, what is sneaky links? How is that defined from what you know?
A sneaky link would be something like, let's say if I had an affair and I had a little friend, that's my sneaky link. Or if it kind of similar to friends with benefits or just hooking up, that's a sneaky link. Going back to your Netflix and chill, I do feel like we created it though. When I was in college, it would be guys saying, "You want to come over to my room and watch a movie?" And we knew it was going down when I was in college. So, but yeah, the sneaky link is just a person, or like a dick appointment is another term that's out here.
See, all these, you're starting to hear it. You know, I had to look this up. I had never heard the term when Tasha brought it to my attention. So Tasha, tell us about these sneaky links, but I want you to tell us what's the difference between the sneaky link and hooking up. You know,
So the sneaky link is someone that you don't want to be seen with in public at all. You're cool with that person, and you will have that person over to your house. You may have somewhat of a friendly relationship with them, but not really. But it's strictly about hooking up. I don't know. Some of them blur the line a little bit too much for me because they post the videos of them at their sneaky links house or going out to eat, but it's really about just being not wanting to be seen with them. You're either you having another situation going on, you sneaking and creeping, kind of deal like that.
Okay.
But the hookup, like a hookup culture, is just for me it's far more laid back, and to me it's a lot easier because it's somebody just that you meet and you're like, oh, okay, you want to get together, like Candace said, like a little dick appointment, you want to come over and Netflix and chill. It doesn't really stray too far outside of that. What it is, as my friend likes to say, what this is. So, what
I
it
always
is.
like that. I love that.
It's not going to get too deep. That's as far as it will ever go. But a sneaky link, to me, it just seems like they use that as like a stepping stone kind of for a relationship, and it leads too easily into like a friends with benefits, where it should just be something every now and then, and you shouldn't even be really hanging like that. So
Okay. Okay. So I looked this up. Great explanation. First of all, DJ, you said movie night was the move. We made that. Hey, my brother, that was the best. You had a built-in excuse to go over, but to your boy's point, Tasha, you know what this is. You know what this is. So that was the beauty of that. And I've stole that from him. You need to tell him that. You know what this is. But having said that, I went to the Urban Dictionary, and yes, that's a real thing. And I looked up sneaky links, and we haven't quite crossed the hour for me to say it like it's put. But a sneaky link is when you and another person are effing, but don't want anyone to know about it. Simply put, simply
it's
put,
the dog face girl, it's the ugly dude, something like that.
And absolutely. But so here makes this very unique to me, because you're right, Tasha, in the sense that you don't want anybody to know about this. This is what makes it a sneaky link. That this is taking creeping to me to the ultimate level, because in my generation, the hookup, the late night creep, the Netflix and chill, these weren't always women you were attracted to, but you wasn't ashamed of them, and you wasn't ashamed that people knew you was getting it, because in the words of your boy, you know what this is. You know what I'm saying? So that was the beauty of it, is that if I got a call or a text at a certain hour, if it's 1 a.m. and it's a WYD, I don't care who see them coming and going in my apartment, because if I open the door, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and my neighbor across the hall happens to be looking out or hear them knocking, that instant look that you shared was what your boy said. You know what this is, because at 1 a.m. she ain't coming over here to plant flowers. You know what I'm saying? Right. And vice versa. But according to this, the sneaky links term, this is a more James Bondish kind of thing. DJ said it's a down low. Absolutely. This is more of a down low kind of thing of, like you said, Tasha, you brought up a good point. Is this effing, like you said, the ugly dude, the real fat girl? You know what I'm saying? Whatever. Look, don't anybody writing on me talking about fat, because I'm a fat man, so I ain't got nothing against fat people. I am fat, but I'm just saying I might be that sneaky link under those terms, that you know what, in public I might not F with his fat ass, but we might. So it got me to thinking that when I was out there and I was dealing with a 26-year-old, I said to myself as I was researching, well, damn, was I a sneaky? Was I a sneaky link?
The self-awareness.
And it totally flipped my mindset, because on the one hand, while I'm thinking I'm getting over that, I got this 26-year-old coming over, but it now it flipped the script like, well, wait a minute. We don't go nowhere. She don't want nobody to be, she gonna be seen with this fat old man, but I come through and I'll break him off. So I'll be damned if I'm the sneaky link in this scenario. You know? So thank you, DJ. DJ said we've all been one. My brother, it didn't hit me until doing this research that, well, I'll be damned that the tides was turned, which brings me to the question that I want to ask of this generation, since they've been able to flip the script, change the game. Do you guys think that this generation has more sex than in previous generations, like my own? And I like that, Tasha, you doing this because you really before Candace already said no, but I'm gonna get your answer. But think about it, for example, because they've taken this to the next level, and we think we've already established that for them and their generation, the veil has been lifted in terms of taboos and stuff like that. So, do you think this generation, and again, we're talking about these young people out here, 18 to 24-year-olds primarily, do you think that they have more sex than in previous generations? Candace, you said no. Tell us why.
Because I feel like we wouldn't be here if if they had more than us. Like, to me, history repeats itself. If anything, they're getting more money than we did back in the day, because fans, all of that, these rooms and all that, this $40. So I feel like that. Look at Freaknik. There's no thing like Freaknik going on right now, and I know Freaknik was open season for just banging out in public. I just feel like it was way more back then, and people back then, a lot of what the whole Me Too movement and all that wasn't there back then. So I feel like people were way more freer to have sex. They just didn't talk about it.
Interesting perspective. Sherry, what do you think? Do you think this current generation has more sex than in previous generations?
Yeah, I do. I think they have more sex than previous generations, because it from that age range that you gave me, like you did the sneaky link thing. This is all what they doing out here. They be in and out. Like, they have. I know people who have a different girl every night. Like, but they don't. This ain't my girl, and like you said, they don't want to be seen. You know what I'm saying? But I think they have. They having more sex than we did back then, because we had more principles and morals.
Another interesting perspective. I'm gonna get to Tasha. While I'm getting to Tasha, sis, I want you to come out of the witness protection program and put a little light on you, okay?
Oh, I like to shut up. Tony.
Y'all know I gotta mess with it.
Tony, turn that light on for me. Right,
y'all already know I gotta mess with it.
Right there.
Tasha, before I come to you, DJ said, 2001 to 2010 was pretty bad. And we didn't have social media, so we got away with more also. DJ says we didn't have morals either,
Say I had a friend in college, because me and DJ are the same age. I had a guy friend in college. Now, first of all, my freshman year I was a virgin. By our sophomore year, he talked about the 300 women he had slept with just sophomore year, and I was like, God, I'm just working on one. So,
that's what I said. Tasha, what do you think? Do you think this generation has more sex than in previous generations?
I'm gonna say yes. I think so. I believe that they are, just because it's just too open and it's too easy and there's less restraints on it. This one's sleeping with that one. It's just too easy. And it's promoted, kind of. There's a reason why STDs are on the rise. Just look at those numbers there. So I mean, you can't catch it from sitting on a bus. It's coming from screw it. Maybe we need to look at those age demographics to see exactly who it is. But yeah, there's a reason why it's on the rise. I do believe they are out here getting it.
Okay. Now, prior to me looking up the numbers, and again, look, when I look up these studies, I'm sure you go pull up other studies. I'm just talking about the one that I pulled up. So I would have said yes. I would have definitively have said yes for a lot of the reasons you said, Tasha. Before I even get to this, when I looked at this, when I thought about this generation, I should say, I've been jealous for about 10 years of this generation, to be perfectly honest with you. I've actually, much as I like Snatch, I can't say the real word I want to say until about 30 minutes. But as much as I love Snatch, I've said to myself, knowing what I know now, if I lived in this time, I would be a beast. Because in my generation, I felt like we had to work for it. I came up during that Janet Jackson era. You know, I used songs and movies to reference my time frame. You remember, you got to have a J-O-B if you want to be with. Back in them days, I felt like you had to talk your way in. You had to have the gift of gab. You know, also, I came up in an age where you were evaluated by what kind of car you drive, how you dressed. You know, that conversation better be on point. You know, Biggie Smalls say in one of his popular songs, "What's your name? What's your sign?" He said, "I just creep up from behind." You know what I'm saying? So I come from that era where you got to be slick with gift with the gab, and you know, coochie from, like Biggie said, you had to have those things. And I sit and I watch this generation, and I say to myself, they don't care how they dress. Their hygiene is done with the shit. I can say shit. A lot of them, their hookup is not predicated on what they drive, whether they live in a nice place. You know, they'll do it in a car, whatever. And I felt the jealousy in a sense that all this good snatch out here that they don't have to work for. So my thought was, they get way more sex than we are. And I would almost get angry with a lot of the young guys because I was like, they don't love it like we loved it back in the day. Like, you know, if my boy was on here right now, nothing was more important than snatch. Nothing. Sports, basketball, cars, dogs, whatever your hobbies was. We had two hobbies in my day: drinking and bitches. That was it.
You can say bitches.
I think you can say bitches. You know, and I mean that with love. but if everything got dropped, if it came time, if you was gonna get you a piece of snatch, like you could be cooking dinner, you could be going somewhere. But if a woman, the idea that she was gonna give you something, we went into Superman routine. You rushed and started throwing clothes in the closet and shit, fluffing out pillows, jumping in the shower real quick, because it was all about that thing. But this new generation, they seem to have this nonchalantness about them. And I was jealous, like, you know, damn, you know, these young girls out here now, this generation, they giving it away. Until I did the research. Well, I'll be damned. So according to the General Social Survey done by the Journal Archives of Sexual Behavior, it actually brought out that the average number of sex partners, when you're talking about American adults from that age range, from the 80s and 90s, was equal. But it says for baby boomers, check this out, the number of sex partners is 11.68, and for millennials, it's down to 8.26. So that's where my survey started. So to your point, Candace, you're right. So that was the first eye opener that, well, wait a minute. So you're telling me that these younger people they have less sex partners? And I'm going to get to, you know, to some of this, but let's talk about why some of this is the case. And when I did further studies, it gave some statistics talking about the change of views and sexual behavior. For those young adults in the 1970s, so again, remember we started with that sexual revolution of the 70s? 29% of Americans at that time felt like sex before marriage was acceptable. In the 80s, it jumped up to 42%. 42% of Americans in that age group thought that sex before marriage is acceptable. By the time we hit the 2000s, 49% felt that way. And in 2008, 55% of young adults felt that sex before marriage is acceptable. But here's some things I want you to think about. Now, as far as sexual partners go, that was different because the adults from the baby boomers, I lost Tasha. Hang on. Okay. Did I bring you back, Tasha? All right. So what we end up discovering is that this younger generation, though, in terms of how long they were waiting, those adults from the baby boomers generation, they were the baby boomers generation, they wait far less than the millennials do. I discovered in this study that millennials into their late teens, 62% of them from their late teens into their 20s are delaying having sex. What do you guys think about those numbers?
I was 17, so
yeah, I was 19, but I'll say this: the baby boomers and all in the older generations didn't have to worry about the scare of AIDS and HIV. So by the time you get to the 90s and the 2000s, you have people really thinking about their choices. Now we still do it, but now you have all of that going on. Then you have, like, I was raised by a single mom. I didn't want to be like her, so I prolonged having sex because I thought if I have sex, I'm gonna have a baby, I'm gonna be 15, 16 and pregnant, then I'm gonna have to take care of it. And I'm not, so I feel like even though we saw a lot of sex, we made smarter choices in order not to make the mistakes that they made.
You're 100% correct, Candace. And that's when I looked at it from that perspective, I realized that I was looking at it the wrong way. And so this study was talking about how actually your sexual attitudes develop when you're younger from things you see. And that's one of the causes. And so I got to tell a story how I can relate to this. And this is about my sister, Sherry, how this is a fact in there. DJ said, damn, I feel like a hoe. The average was low. DJ, I felt the same way, my brother.
the rookie numbers.
But to show you that how the younger generations, the further they went along, how their sexual attitudes develop younger and based on what they've saw, I'm a tell this story in a clean way, and then I'm gonna let my sister kind of tell the result. When my sister was in high school, I came home early from school one day. Now, we were latchkey kids. My mom worked for a living, clean houses, so we had a little key around our neck or whatever. So la-di-dee, la-di-da, I coming into the apartment, and I get inside, and I could hear some people talking or whatever. And as I'm coming down the hallway, I realized that somebody's in Sherry's room. Knock, knock, knock. Sherry, what you doing? You in here? So anyway, long story short, I caught my sister getting ready to get it in. She had played hooky and had snuck a boy in to get it in. Now, me being the brother, I gave her the brother talk, about, sis, what are you doing? And it was a weird scenario because it didn't get volatile. It was just me pulling my sister's side saying, Sherry, what you doing? I mean, look, you want to think about this, I'm a guy and I know how guys talk and how guys do things. If you do this, ain't no going back and blah, 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 and your reputation is going to be out there, blah, blah, blah. Now, Sherry, I want you to tell our audience, I didn't know about this until this happened when my sister was Sherry, 16, 15 or 16 years old. And I did not know the results of my conversation with her until maybe 5 years ago. 5 years ago. because I ended up moving away from New York when I was a teenager, and we've been grown all these years. So we're talking some 30 something years. So Sherry, I want you to tell the audience that conversation, how it impacted you and your attitude and views when it comes to premarital sex.
Well, at that time, like I said, I thought I was doing the end thing. He hadn't convinced me that let's get it on, and I was with it. But when you caught me, I was so embarrassed and you said that to me, and I thought about it, and I was like, yeah. Honestly, I thought maybe he probably gonna tell somebody I'm be the laughing stock, and so I got him up out of there. And I was so embarrassed, I couldn't even face you. And then I said to myself, you know what? My brother is right. I don't want to be talked about and all this kind of stuff. So I told him maybe about 5 years ago that made a difference in me and how I dealt with men, pretty much, because I didn't want to be no loose girl, you know what I'm saying, out here, whatever. But see, at that time, I thought it was okay because I'm gonna be honest with you, I had a mother who had all these kids, and she would
Candace, you was talking about that?
She would tell us the stories and be singing songs, put your foot on the rock and let the boys get the cock and all this here kind of stuff. So I thought it was good, you feel me? Until Freddie said that to me, and it changed me as a person. So I became like this promising person. I talked to God, but I would promise him sex and never, never have it with him. But until I got married. Remember, I got married young. And so I've been married now almost 32 years. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't saying I ain't dib and dab in between. I ain't gonna lie. I did my thing. I'm gonna be honest with you, you know what I'm saying? But, in a clean way, you know what I mean? But it made me a different person because, first of all, I didn't want my brother to look at me in a way. And then I wanted to have respect for myself. What he was telling me was true, you know what I mean? And so that's how, and it just made me be the person I am today. I fought you for me being green. I could have been getting my swearing.
She could have been putting her foot on the rock all the time.
So about 5 years ago, some kind of way I was in New York visiting, and we was having a conversation, and we were talking about a friend that we had, and I was saying that, well, I know, sis, I know y'all was doing this and doing that because I knew the friend was out there like that, and my sister said, "Oh no, not me." And that's when because again, as a brother, you don't normally sit up and talk with your sister about whether they've had oral sex and what they've done. You just don't have those conversations. But I imagined, as a grown woman, and she was young, surely she did this and surely she did that. So it was in this conversation that it kind of came out that, wow, that conversation between she and I changed her trajectory of how she looked at premarital sex. And to your point, Candace, she coupled that with looking at the fact that our mother had all these children and there was no father around. So it shaped her attitudes and views. So when I started to look at these numbers then through that prism, it does make me feel like the previous generations, although they may not have been as open, how much more was going on in the dark behind the scenes that just wasn't talked about. And so you brought up some of the reasons why, one of the reasons why you talked about the epidemic of AIDS and stuff. But here's another factor that made a difference. People are waiting much longer to get married. In 1970, the median age to get married for men was 21 and for women was 23. By the time we got to 2010, men, that age has jumped up to 27 and women 29. Where we're now in 2021, those numbers are even higher. Mm-hmm. For men now, the median age for men getting married in 2021 is 35. And women, 37. I won't say your age, Tasha, you know what I'm saying, but you're not married. What do you think about those numbers?
Yeah, it's true. I'll say my age. I'm not ashamed. I'm
32. You're not supposed to say it to be polite, but go ahead. Okay, so go ahead.
I'm 32, and absolutely, I couldn't imagine being married right now. I couldn't. I know that that's just not something that I don't think is taught the same way. The value isn't even placed on it. The emphasis isn't even placed on it, and like it used to be. Also, I think that a lot of people just didn't grow up with very good examples of it, and so they're using that in their own adulthood, saying, "Why would I do it?" Especially I hear a lot of men say it. I'm not going to benefit from it, so why am I going to do it now when I'm young? It's really that whole I'm going to enjoy my youth and then I'll settle down later on. But
Absolutely.
I absolutely millennials, we are absolutely waiting till later on in life, much later, to settle down.
You know, anybody have any other comment before I go to that? But I want to tell my own personal example how that relates. I got married at 21 because that's what you did. You know what I'm saying? I moved to the South. It was the Bible Belt. And I knew that if I wanted to be perceived in a respectable way, I had to get married. I married, my wife was 19 years old. I moved to a state and a city where it was common for 16 and 17-year-old girls to get married. And now we can talk about the psychology of that, because think about who you are at 16, 17, 21, where you're still discovering yourself sexually, who you are. But if you're in the Bible Belt and you want to be perceived in a good light, you go ahead on and get married, because you don't have that growth in that period of self-discovery. And so I knew when I did it, to be honest with you, that I was too young. But again, my reasons behind it was, okay, I want to be respectable. At that time, I had a religious, aspect to it. But you look at this generation now, again, these millennials, they don't have that pressure on them. DJ says, man, that was real. I haven't been married based on what I saw my parents do. Absolutely. And so for the younger generation, they looking at the marriages, even the so-called good marriages that their parents was in, and now that they've gotten old enough, and you know what they discovered? Even though those people stayed married, were they happy? Was it a happy marriage? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because how many young people are growing up in households where, yeah, they're married, but the arguing, the dislike, you know what I'm saying, and all those things make a difference. Another thing is the same-sex relationships have come on and taken a whole nother perspective on how young people view sex and morals. Until the 1990s, only 11% of Americans approved of same-sex relationships. 11%. By 1993, that number jumped up to 22%. 2012, 44%. And amongst millennials right now, 56% of them have no issue with same-sex marriages.
That don't
Huge. Go ahead. I'm sorry, sis.
no, that don't really surprise me, because this is the the gay pride week, and when you see the little kids that be like 12 years old holding hands with boys or girls, I'll be looking like, what is going on? They ain't even getting nothing right to know what they wanted to be or whatever. But
We
it's
keep
okay
losing
with
Tasha.
Sorry.
Okay. That's all right. That's all right. And in case you guys wondering why I'm bringing all these statistics, I'm coming with something that I want to throw on you guys in a second. Because right now we're talking about why their attitudes have changed. And again, proliferation of AIDS, you know what I'm saying? They're looking at same-sex relationships, they're waiting to get longer to get married, but also their attitudes towards casual sex have changed. Though millennials are willing, this is the part that I really like. This was a point that I really like. Though millennials are more willing to engage in casual sex, they have a different view when it comes to how many sexual partners. So those are two separate things. How they view casual sex, but how many sexual partners they have are two completely separate things. So amongst teenagers in 2006, 4% of them, is that 4? Yeah, 4% of them actually they are approved of casual sex. That number went to 6% in 2012. And far as extramarital sex in 1973, the approval rate was at 4%. In 2012, it dropped to 1%. Think about those numbers. So, far as teenagers in 2006 that had no issue with casual sex was at 4%, and it went up in 2012. It didn't give numbers for current numbers, but we know those numbers are even higher. They have no issue with casual sex, but look at how they view extramarital sex. The numbers have gone down, all the way down to 1%. Why do you think that's the case?
They went down.
So
They went down.
they don't view it as negative. Is that what you're saying? Extramarital sex?
No, they view it as negative. They view it as negative. And so think about what we just talked about. So for them, for this younger generation, they're waiting longer to get married, but they view it as if you get married, you should not cheat.
I'm surprised about that.
See, I'm not. I don't know. Well, Freddie, one of these schools I worked at, I guess it wasn't AIU.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about the different types of students, and that generation that's after the millennials, they're like somewhat traditional for some reason. I don't know if it's because they've looked at how we've come and how wild we were, but as it relates to everything in their life, they are very analytical. They think about a lot of their choices, and you can tell when you're like enrolling them for school. Even though they used to, like that age group, 18 to 24, about 10 years ago, they barely like to speak. Some of them are speaking now. They know what they want to do. They know this, they know that. So I don't know if they're just learning more and maturing faster or what it is, but they think about things more. I do know that. So maybe that's why.
So I got a quote for you that I wrote down that I'm going to try to memorize because I love this quote based on what you just said. And you're talking about as we experience it in education. And we do see it in how they look at, like you said, their analytical skills are kicking in because they don't view going to college the same way anymore. Getting a traditional college, getting a traditional job. So I wrote this quote down, and I want to make sure I credit the right person. PhD John M. Twenge, who wrote the book Generation Me. I love this quote. He said, when the culture places more emphasis on the needs of the self and less on social rules, more relaxed attitudes towards sexuality are the most inevitable result. I'm going to read that again. When the culture places more emphasis on the needs of the self and less on social rules, more relaxed attitudes towards sexuality are the most inevitable result. You guys get that? Because this newer generation, they're the me generation. We come from the we generation. I'm from the we generation. The way we thought and spoke about things, we spoke about it as a collective. And so when I talk about getting married at 21, it's because of how it was going to look to other people, how I was going to be viewed. Well, this newer generation, they don't give a damn about that. They're making conscious decisions on to whether right or wrong. We talk about the negative aspects as well, but it's all about them. What makes me happy? I'm not going to enter into a relationship, a contract, or anything if it doesn't benefit me. And so with that focus on self and less on social and constructual rules, it talks about the sexuality, the attitudes towards sexuality are the most inevitable results. So they have a greater freedom, they feel, to make this decision that what's best for them.
That's why I don't think that they're really millennials. That's why I have a problem with the way the generations are set up.
You've
Because you're
argued
saying
that point.
18 to 24,
Mhm.
technically from what 80 what to 80 something to like 96 is considered a millennial. But the millennials and ourselves, we're two different groups. You have the younger, the zillennials, which are closer to Gen Z. Then I would think like the other millennials, like we're splitting ourselves. That's why, for me, it's kind of like it makes sense. My
You
youngest
are
brother is
accurate, but I'm
20.
leaving out those 16-year-olds. I'm not even discussing the teenagers. But you have a point because it crosses over. Because you at 33, you fall into both categories, Tasha.
No.
You cross over to both categories. Not so, because again, you've been exposed to the generation above you and influenced by the one beneath you. Therein lie so there lie some of those issues right there. But that brings us to what has created this generational gap, which is a perfect segue into what's behind the generational gap. We talked about some of them. Let's talk about the Me Too movement. You mentioned it early on, Candace. How do you guys think the Me Too movement has affected the current sexual revolution and their attitudes towards sex?
I think it might have affected it a lot because things that were not considered harassment or assault are now considered assault and a part of that Me Too movement. So you have people that they did go through abuse, and so now there are other people thinking about, well, that happened to me too. So it's turned some sexual relations into taboo behaviors. So I think it has affected it a lot.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
I think
Yeah,
it's
I agree
definitely
with.
stunted it.
Go
Oh,
ahead,
I'm sorry.
go ahead, Tasha.
Go ahead, Terry.
No, I just was saying I agree with what Candace said because that generation they don't care about they, like you said, they care about only them, and they look, being that all the diseases and different stuff is out here, like Candace said, they take more, they think about that more. We didn't have that, so we didn't think about it.
Okay. So how does that play into the Me Too movement?
Because basically, it's when a guy's back in the day when you said no, they thought the no was yes. Now they realize they're gonna get their monkey ass locked up. So no mean no.
Okay. What do you say, Tasha?
I was saying I think it's stunted it in a way. A lot of people are using the Me Too movement to me, I believe, to explore their own sexuality. And when I say that, everyone now seems to have some sort of trauma or experience to where a man made them feel some type of way, which is what pushed them to be with another woman. So I think it's stunted it as far as heterosexual relationships go, but it's in their terms, it's encouraged them to be more expressive and to look for a deeper connection with someone, where it's not just about sex, but everyone has a story now.
Okay. Very good points. And I wasn't looking at it from that standpoint, but I definitely, when I think about the Me Too movement, going back to at the beginning when I said I was jealous of this generation and the sexual freedom that they have and how easy it was. This was one that made me look at why, even though on some levels it's easier, but there's an expression, not everything that's easy is good for you.
Mm.
And that's because, yes, their views towards casual sex is certainly freer. So that ban is lifted. But to Candace's point, what was once considered safe or non-confrontational behavior, they've redefined now the rules of dating when I look at it now.
Mm-hmm.
And so you almost need permission for every little thing that you do. And so I think the Me Too movement has created an environment of such distrust and and ambiguity until nobody really for men, it's definitely taken all of the chase out of it for men. It's taken all of the chase out of it for men. I'll tell you about real life examples of my boy came to visit and we went to a little sports bar and we sitting up in there. Harold's Chicken and Waffles. Shout out to Harold's Chicken and Waffles right here in Atlanta. So we go there. You know, y'all need to give me something for that. But we go there, and I'm talking about it's crawling with hoes. You know, I mean, you know, it's after 9 o'clock now. It's some fat pussied hoes up in this place. The drinks is flowing, the music is banging. Me, my boy, and two friends, we sitting off in there and everything. And as we looked around and got comfortable, we got our drinks sitting there, the food was good, everything. You know what we noticed that was so odd for us? In previous environments like that, it would have been a buzz where the guys would have been at the tables hollering at the women, and it would have been a lot of back and forth. It was so, I don't know the word for it, clinical. We were almost like we were at a doctor's office where everybody stayed at their tables. There was very little mingling going on. We saw whole tables with women that were buying each other's shots. No guys were hollering at them. It was very odd where the guys stayed at their table, the women stayed at their table. And this was when we began to realize, and I've used this expression since then, we don't get to choose anymore as men. You have to wait to get chosen. Because at our table, whenever kind of women would kind of get close by, we would do the traditional, what's up, sweetheart, blah, 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 reach out and touch an elbow or something like that. And the way it was perceived, you would have thought we were raping somebody by simply reaching out and grabbing a woman's, tugging, something simple as, hey, what's up, sweetheart? Blah, blah. And you'd get that, that the nastiest look to where you're like, whoa, 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 man, And so Me Too and this empowerment of women, if there's a such thing as a chase, that men like to chase, it took the chase out of men and it put all of the power in the hands of women. Now, some may say that's a good thing. I have my doubts. I have all these expressions I live by. Be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. And so, whereas I'm not saying all behavior that men did was great. I can only imagine for you as women what a cat call might feel like, what the leers might feel like. When somebody's offering you dick every day of your life, I don't know what that feels like as a woman. Even when you feel like you're not even looking your best, y'all would be better able to explain how offensive that is. As a man, so some of those behaviors certainly should be curtailed. But I think where it's going too far is the example that I can give about when you open a door for a woman and that's perceived as disrespectful. When you say, hey, you have nice hair, and that's perceived as disrespectful. When I spent 6 weeks under an HR investigation because I commented on a woman's hair in her boots, that's going too far. So when you have that situation, for a lot of guys, I'm not going to say anything. And that's why I said we don't choose, you wait to get chosen. And I think that has certainly slowed down the amount of sex this generation is having because we're strictly at the whim almost of when a woman is ready. Anybody got any thoughts on that?
I'll say this, I could understand that, for a man, maybe it's also because they don't want to be accused of doing something and their whole get turned upside down, because we see that a lot. It's, with the accusations, you, even though they may be cleared of it, the ramifications, those long-term effects, your name is forever tarnished and associated with something like that.
Absolutely.
It
The
is sad,
HR,
just as you're putting it out there and just taking it all in, it's very sad.
the HR investigation that I underwent, that was my argument. I said, you fucking with my name. We only get one name. And no matter how that turned out, for them to have investigated me for 6 weeks, there are going to be people who know me who might say, oh, man, that was really messed up. But there are also going to be those on the side that think, man, what did he do? And they must have couldn't have proved it. He's still working here because they had his ass, but they didn't prove it, because now you're fucking with my name. Kama says, I think the Me Too picks and chooses who to pursue these days, and I don't know how cats even try to get women. You can't say anything. I agree. So that's what we're talking about. Karma, you said this is powerful stuff. I definitely witnessed this at my homegirl's baby shower. So this is common for people who don't know. He's in that generation. This is a young man, and he's talking about going to a baby shower, but gone are the days when you could go, and you have to be careful how you flirt now because of how it's perceived, because you only get one name. And like you said, Tasha, once that's attached to you, that's a hard label to come up from under, right there.
What's disappointing though is that it's pushed, for a lot of women who are still out there, still available, still looking, who do want the traditional pursuer and did mind certain behaviors and things.
Right.
Now, you have men who are afraid to talk to you because they don't want to be labeled as a creeper or something like that.
Correct.
Or because you want someone who's just gonna come to you and state their intention. Well, let me just speak for myself. I want someone who is just gonna come to me and state their intentions. You can't offend me, and however you decide to approach me, I guess because I was raised, I'm gonna check you if I don't like it or not.
Right.
But I'm not going to take it to a whole other extreme. That, to me, that's just the time that we live in. And because the power of social media, all it takes is for one person to snap a picture of you and put you out there, and then now they have your picture. You done gone viral for being the weird dude touching on people in the store.
You literally segued to the other reason: social media and technology. Perfect segue in how it's changed the sexual culture. Because of what you just laid it on the line. I come from a time where there was never a worry about a picture showing up on social media of my behavior. When I was out in the clubbing scene, I posted a picture this week. I don't know if you guys have seen it leading up to this conversation. And I said, look at me in my old school pimping days, and that was one of the reasons why I posted it. That picture represented a time when, man, you out, you got a drink in your hand, you got your arm around a woman, you was the shit and you could do your thing. Something as simple as that now being posted, it could get the wrong amount of likes, dislikes, comments, and it turns into something else, even though nobody was there. Nobody knows the context of the picture, but you'll be amazed at, why he got his hand there. You know what I mean? So we live in an age now of social media and technology where things are communicated at lightning speed. Candace, you're a married woman. Imagine being out at an all-girls night out event and an innocent dance with a guy, or forget a dance. Imagine a guy, you're an attractive woman. Imagine a guy's leaning over the table saying something to you, and in that moment, click, 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 and that picture goes out, and people who know you and know you're married, the perception. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes, I do. I couldn't unmute. Yes, I know it's the perception, which is why sometimes though you have to be mindful now in those situations and kind of, I'll just say this, be cautious. So I don't know, like with a lot of girls' nights, I do go out and I had friends post my story. And so my brother-in-laws were calling my husband one night because I was out. So it's like you're damned for going out and then you're damned if
right.
people will be like, oh, you can't go out anymore. So I just learned to live my life for me. And
Absolutely. Well, you have to, but at the same time, you could see how social media and technology has changed the way we look at sexual culture now, to the point where for some people they're bowing out altogether because they just don't want to be caught up in a situation based on how it looks. Go ahead, Tasha. I'm sorry.
No, I was just agreeing because that's how I am. Please don't post me. Oh, please don't post me on social media. Just about as much as I'm gonna be posted.
Right.
I don't take pictures. I don't like my business to be out there. I don't like that. But that's my biggest drawback with it, because you're not. Some people go out with the intention of expressly trying to catch someone in the gotcha bitch moment constantly. And like you said, when you just a simple video, a simple picture, someone takes it and makes it into something far more perverse than it just, it could just be something in passing. It's very sad. And I think it's made people a lot more cynical and a lot more skeptical and distrusting of one another, and further creates even more problems in relationships. That's why people are, a lot of their problems. I don't know if you watch like divorce court. That's like one of the main issues that they're always talking about is the social media. They're always liking somebody. They're always taking this picture, always sending this message. It's overwhelming. It's nerve-wracking is what it is. It makes me tired.
And so it has changed how we even think about how we dress, how we go out. Tasha's got a wedding coming up.
I will not be posting pictures, videos, none like that. I'm just letting you know.
But again, and I wasn't putting your business out there in that sense, but I was saying it as it relates to this conversation, though, because you know that you're going to a public event, it makes you conscious of how you dress, who's around you, and so it changes all of those things of how just how you can kind of be in your own skin and be comfortable. It changes all those things. Another reason that's behind a generational gap when it comes to sexual attitudes is the proliferation of online porn. You guys, we've been talking about this a lot lately. We've been talking, but here's the difference in this conversation, because this is the opposite. We just had this conversation. What was it, last week? Was last week we were talking about porn? And we were talking.
That was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how the proliferation of porn and how it led to a lot of negative things in relationships, because we know that real women don't screw like that. Sex don't really happen like that, blah, 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 blah. But here's where this is different. One of the reasons why the generational gap in sexual attitudes is because young people, this generation, they have ready access to online porn. And so for them, in a lot of cases, why go somewhere when you can satisfy yourself? It's in the palm of your hands. And when I thought about it from that perspective, I'm a man. Well, before I say what I'm gonna say, what do you guys think about that playing a factor in the generational gap of why the younger generation actually is having sex less? What do you think about the proliferation of porn? What do you got to say?
Yeah, because like you just said, they got so many gadgets out here that they could please themselves. Because I have a friend that sells sex toys, and she was trying to get me to get some thing that you put in, the woman puts in her, and you give the man the remote. So basically, it's like he having sex with you. She was at dinner talking about he was pushing the button. Why? Like, I mean, why you want to feel like you having sex in a restaurant? Like, I don't understand.
That's exciting. Oh,
and that's a she sells these things, and I told her, I don't, and I said I don't want no man controlling like I'm having sex and we wherever we at. No, make something for the man and let me be pushing a button on him. No.
So that you say that, sis, a 2018 study by Cosmopolitan, they said that millennials aren't necessarily having less sex, but they are expanding and redefining what counts as sex. And so what you're describing for them might be sex, because traditional studies, they're questioning, are we only talking about vaginal sex? Because are they including anal in that? Are they including oral in that? I asked the question a few weeks ago, is oral sex sex?
Yes.
You
He got
say so.
penetrated. Yes.
So, but this herein lies where this younger generation is redefining what's considered sex. So to Sherry's point, for them, for your friend Sherry, for her, that's sex. I would not have included that as sex, but if she has a gadget implanted in her and a guy has the remote and he can please her, I couldn't personally get anything out of that.
Me either.
But, and what I'm saying, even as a man,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But this generation might consider that, man, I had a freaky encounter with such and such because, oh man, she let me do this and that. I'm more old school. Until I can stick my wang dang doodle up in it, we ain't done a GD thing.
But is it really redefining sex? I mean, to me, sex is sex. You can't redefine it. You can do it a few different ways. You can have different levels to it. But is it really redefining sex? But I think as far as the whole porn thing goes, I think it's the whole with them not having sex, it's their inexperience. And I think it's their awkwardness because a lot of them don't even know how to interact socially and lack that ability because of technology and social media. They don't know how to connect with a person directly. So they have to rely on that.
I agree with you in part. I think there's a great segment of people out there that fall into that category, McMack, that you're right, that they don't know their own bodies, they're not experienced, and so that's what they use. But I also think there's a segment of people out there that, because of the proliferation of porn and all the things that entails, for them, they do know what they want. How many guys out there are purchasing fleshlights? For the sake of argument, Sherry, you know what I'll call you Green. You know what a fleshlight is, right?
No, what's that?
Okay, Candace, you know what a fleshlight is, right?
No,
you guys got to be kidding me.
I don't know about no flashlight.
I don't.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring on the resident freak here, Tasha. I'm gonna show y'all something. Now, this wasn't planned. Tasha, what's a fleshlight?
Oh, a fleshlight? It is that little machine that it looks like a pussy, but like it's in a flashlight thing, and guys can stick their dick in it.
Bingo!
So a pocket pussy.
Yeah, pocket pussy. That's all it is.
But it's it's way more advanced than that. Let me be clear.
They have different.
Let me be clear. And that's why I want you guys to understand this. It's way more than that. I'm talking about these things are built to look and feel like the real thing. So I don't want you to think this is not me getting a milk bottle and stuffing myself into it a little bit.
No, that's not it. No, they look like it.
They look and feel like they really put the technology behind this, that it looks and feels, and so doing the action. And we're talking about $1 billion industry, and I'm just giving you one example. Karma's laughing at you, Sherry, because the look on your face is confused. What is
the rose? Because I hear about that.
Oh, let me tell you about the rose.
I talk. This is our resident. Go ahead.
Now I don't have one, but it's specifically this is this new thing, and I think it's going to ruin sex for a lot of women because you can put it on your clit and it actually sucks on it. It is a sex toy that
She's
will suck
making my
on
point.
your clit and it vibrates and all of that.
She's making my point. So, Tasha, you asked the question a minute ago. Is it really redefining sex? And the answer is yes. The
I don't
answer
think
is
it's redefining it. I think there's a new level to it. That's all
see,
I think
that's
it
coming
is.
from a freak.
But I think in the long term, this is going to hurt women. I'm very
I
much
agree.
of the mindset like you can masturbate, do all that stuff all you want to, but when you start overstimulating yourself, you're going to lose some sort of feeling there, or it's going to take longer, or you're going to rely so much on that no man is going to be able to please you because ain't no man gonna
I'm
be
not
sucking and
disagreeing with
blowing
you.
on you for an hour
I'm not
and it just
disagreeing with
be
you, but
his
that's a
jaw gonna get
whole.
tired.
I'm not disagreeing with her, and that's a whole nother conversation because I famously tell a story about an ex of mine who played on a pussy too much that it was just nasty. Every time I looked up, it was just one big fat sloppy mess because she played in it all day long. But that's a whole nother conversation. That conversation is that after you played in your pussy for 6-7 hours a day, and now you think I can't do nothing for you, baby. You know what I'm saying? But that's a whole nother conversation, Karma says, damn, I never even heard about no rolls. But that's the point, though. On back to a serious note.
They're $60.
See,
you can get it on Amazon.
The clit sucker.
See, she's done all.
Wait,
I don't have one, but I just don't want one. Huh?
The clit sucker. The clit sucker.
It's called a rose, and it looks like a rose, and it vibrates and everything. I'll send you a link,
folks. Look, this right here is what we're talking about right here, because you now have an interested customer. Clearly,
Hey, I'm getting me a clit sucker. Send me the link.
So that's the thing. So my sister is just now discovering this, but think about the younger generation that they have access to all of these things. We haven't even talked about the life-size dolls that they have out. We haven't even talked about the advances on a serious note that they've made with vibrators, because there was a time when I could make the argument as a man, oh, ain't no substitute for the real thing. I can no longer make that argument fully because the technology is now there, that we went from 30 years ago to where a woman might masturbate with a cucumber or the handle of a spoon or a brush or whatever. So now we have fully thought out technology replicas of penises. And let's be honest, fellas, that do a hell of a lot more than we can do. There's only so much gyrating my fat ass can do. I don't have the deep batteries in me to do all of that. So the technology and the proliferation of porn and all those things are out there, that for this younger generation, it's creating a situation to where, why do I have to go out if I'm going to give it to you raw. And that's what I was going to say. Why do I have to go out if I just want to get a nut? And I can even say that as for a lot of guys, that I'm going to say something that may not be popular to say. Sometimes as a man, we want the nut without the woman. We just want the nut. I don't want to hear your mouth. I don't want to hear your attitude. I don't want to go to the hub of the bub and all about it. I just want the nut. And so for a lot of guys, that's where the fleshlight and the fake dolls and the this and that, the pocket pussies, as you call them, might come into play. Because for a lot of men, remember I told you earlier that the Superman syndrome we used to do? This younger generation, when I said they don't love it like that, they don't have to. Because for some of them, it's like, I don't feel like getting up and putting on no clothes, and I don't feel like having no company over. Here's the fleshlight. Wham, bam, wham, bam, wham, bam. I'm good. I don't need you. You know what I'm saying? And that makes me look at why when they talk to the young women, they call them bruh. This generation, they don't look at them in the same light as my generation does, you know. All I do is see, I'm not saying this is right, but when I look at a woman, I do think of it in a sexual connotation. I've told you guys that. I can't help myself. You know, I'm looking at how she looks, but for a lot of this newer generation, that part doesn't psychologically, it doesn't cross for them in that moment, because for them, it's like, this is just a video game partner. This is somebody they're hanging out with. And so it's changing. And I'm only talking about the men. This same thing happens with women. I have young female women friends who will tell, I got a female friend right now who's told me point blank, she said, if you come to visit me, I'm going to be walking around naked. She says, I don't wear clothes when I'm home. She said, but I don't want to fuck. So don't think when you come over, you get no pussy. She said, this is just how I roll. And I can't process that fully, because I'm telling her, baby, if I come over and you answer the door and you butt naked, I'm going to be trying to get some pussy from you. You know, you're not going to be standing in front of me making me a drink in the kitchen, and that ass and pussy is hanging out, and I ain't thinking about running up in it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Candace.
I was thinking, you don't think, because to me, it's a lot of just some wanting to be desired. I find it so hard to believe that she really thinks she can walk in front of you and expect you to not want her.
She is not the only one. That's why I'm giving you one example. And it's a mindset that from where she stands, she doesn't even think that you should be attracted in that way just because she's nude. But I'm mentally cut from a different place. So she tells me real stories. And I'll tell you a true story that happened in this instant. We all went out as a group one time to a baseball game. Can't say no names. This is a true story. And through the course of the night, she drank and got a little lit and was feeling good. So it was 3 guys there. Me, another guy that's in my age group, and a young guy and it was about 4 women. They all want to screw this young guy. Me and the older guy, we hanging out thinking we can get in where we fit in on these young gals, as they say. So, you know, we rubbing our hands together. The more they drank, we thought the opportunity was going to present itself. As the night went on, this friend of mine, she got attracted to another girl, and they started kissing and getting together at the table and everything, blah, blah. So we're witnessing and watching this and everything. These 2 asked the young guy to take them home. So at that point, me and the other guy, we was thinking like, oh man, you know what I'm saying? He lucky, he getting ready to get into some shit, blah, 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 blah. They get to the house the next day, you know, Cornesta, we want to find out what happened. Pana, you know, did you knock both of them down? They act like they didn't even realize he was there. He was strictly the lift home. He sat there and watched it go down. He wasn't even in the room. They had no use for him whatsoever. And I'm cut from a different cloth. I don't understand that.
I guess I'm cut from a different cloth too, because I would have, back in because I'm a millennial, back when I was in college, if you were getting with a woman, it was only to entice a man. I've never been with a woman, but I just remember dancing in the club with women just for the attention of men.
Right. So that's why I understand where you're coming from.
Wow.
But this is all the next day. And she talked about this openly and honestly. There was no holding back. He was the lift home, and that was it. And I asked her, I said, so how long did he stay? She said, I don't know. She said, at some point he left. But did it bother y'all? She said, we didn't even know he was there.
I have a question. Now, is this guy gay?
No. 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 That's the other part. So that's why, again, she was making it clear, you know, because I was being me and joking and saying about, well, ain't no way I would have been sitting there, blah, blah, blah. But she was being upfront and saying that for her, she wanted a woman in that moment, and that was it. You know, and she says she wake up sometimes like, oh, I want a woman. Sometimes I want a man, but she says she does not wear clothes. And when she gets home, that for her it's not a sexual thing. It's not for attention. That this is just her thing. So we joke all the time, and I was like, "You couldn't. Ain't no sense you having me over, because I'm not going to be sitting up there having no just regular conversation, and I'm looking at that mustard snatch. I'm gonna want a piece of it."
I guess we're just wired different from them. I can't
Bingo.
fathom that.
Bingo. And that's again, absolutely. And I got one last one that contributes to the generational gap. The economy. This is one we don't think about all the time. How do you guys think the economy plays a part in the decision of how young people view having sex and with partners? How do you think that plays a part?
I think it plays a big part because, well, back in my day, if you wanted some snatch, you had to spend a little money. So I would assume, like I said, they have OnlyFans now. I feel like they're getting paid more to do it. So I know women my age, we have the money. Some of my single friends, I seen a meme. All they want to do is travel, eat good food, and get bent over a balcony.
Wow. Wow.
They best believe with them getting bent over a balcony, those men are at the economic level that they are at.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
If Cancun, we're meeting men in Cancun that have
Absolutely.
that money.
So Candace, if guys are paying that, because you got regular people who got fanfare, how does a regular guy compete?
It just depends. He has to have game. That little musty snatch walking around naked, the guy should have tried it at least once. I'm sorry. Like he should have tried.
I'm just saying. Therein lies the dilemma. If you ain't got no game and you ain't got no ducats to spend, and she has guys giving her that kind of money, because let's be honest, not everybody out there is only getting $40. Believe it or not, there are a lot of women out there that are getting the $600 for nothing, because this generation views it as it ain't tricking if you got it like that. That's no big deal.
I'm sorry. I've had Africans finance stuff for me when I was in college. Like it was nothing to get money, and I didn't have to do anything. And they were appalled that I would say they were a sugar daddy, because I'm like, they're like, I have it. I could just.
They don't see it that way. They don't see it that way.
You don't have to do anything.
Dee came to visit Atlanta last year, and it was an African guy that became our sponsor for 2 nights. And you're right. He didn't see it as in any way that he was being taken advantage of. That was just what he did, that he paid for, because he was interested in Dee, he paid for whoever was with her and showed up the next night and met us out and paid for whatever we ordered, because that's the way he had it. That's the way he rolled. You know what I'm saying? And so again, that's one way. But what, Tasha, did you have a point before I go on?
No. I think that the whole sugar daddy subculture has been, just elevated to something totally different now. It's far more acceptable now. Where it was something that you used to whisper about, now it's become very popular.
You get credit for it now. Mm-hmm. You actually get credit for it. But I'm gonna go to the other side. Sis, you had a thought?
Yeah, I was about to say, okay, what about the sugar mamas that's out here playing these young boys?
Same thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolute same thing. But I'm gonna go to the other side of how the economy plays a role. What about for a lot of this millennial generation? They're living at home with their parents later than we did. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, especially when you look up north you take New York, for example. I tell people this all the time. In the South, the mindset has had, notice I'm saying past tense, had always been, you get grown and as quick as you can, you get your apartment. Mm-hmm. 17, 18, 19, certainly 20 years old, you want to get you an apartment. But you know what we started seeing in the last 10 years? That's become more normal now, where you see young adults still living at home with their parents. It's not, it's not anything abnormal anymore. And a lot of it's because of the economy. you know New York has been doing it for the longest, but even here in the South, it's now no longer uncommon that if you go to pick a woman up, she lives with her mom or grandma, you know because families, because of the economy, to make ends meet, and we already talked about how this younger generation, they're getting married at such a later age. So a lot of them again are making the conscious decision. Candace, you talked about earlier, making those analytical decisions, and we see it in education. Why would I move out and have a car note, house note, and all this kind of stuff when I can stay with my parents until I'm 30, 32, till I'm ready to get out? I'm sorry, go ahead, sweetheart.
And I feel like people are living longer, and like they'll say like 40 is the new 30, like
Yes.
healthier. So you
Yes.
have more time to linger.
They're in no rush. They're in no rush.
So
They're absolutely in no rush. And so if you imagine those scenarios, imagine me now though. So I'm not going to go spend the night with somebody who lives with their parents or grandparents. And so all of these are factors that could affect that, that person having sex and stuff. I'm sorry.
But I was gonna say, but you can pay to get a room, so that's where the economics comes in.
and see, I'm old school. I've always looked at it like this. Why would I pay to get a room when I have my own place? But but think about the mindset of that person. You're right, because I can't tell you how many times I've had the woman say, I ain't coming to your house, but you can get a room. Because again, they have to think about their safety and danger and all that kind of stuff. So I get it. So for them, sometimes that was a deal breaker. That was an absolute deal breaker. When I was out there, and I was on the Plenty of Fish and the Tag, it's very true that I had a lot of women that would say, I'm not coming to your house, but you can come here and I know a place, or we can get a room or something like that. Now, for me, I felt, why would I pay for a room when I have my own place? Because for me, this is just going beyond this thing. My thinking was, I have to worry about my safety too. While you're worrying about coming here, I have to worry about if she's setting me up. You know what I'm saying? That I don't want to be in some hotel room or something and the door gets kicked in and now I'm getting robbed or worse. So for me, home court advantage was always that important. So there was a lot of encounters that never happened because of that one thing right there. But these were people that, my thing was, I will only come your way if you live alone. And I can sit here and tell you right now, go on these dating sites. More than half the women do not live alone. They don't have their own place. Now, some of them might live with a roommate, but for me, for the kind of freaky shit that I like to get into, I need absolute and total privacy, so I can't be having no witnesses around. So that was the reason why that for me was.
That sounds dangerous and a little suspect. No, I'm just kidding.
It is what it is, but
to point to this conversation that you say that, it made me think. I was having this conversation with my grandmother the other day, because I was under the impression that once you hit a certain age, and especially once you start having kids, you're supposed to have your own place. And you're absolutely right. Now, it's in the South, which is surprising. These parents don't require that of them. I have a cousin who has a couple of kids, and he still lives, with his dad. And I'm just like, when is he gonna get out? I don't know. I wouldn't want to be screwing in the same house that my parents are in.
But again, that's our mindset. But do you know that their mindset, again, they've removed all of the taboos from that you see situations now on TV and stuff where the boyfriend lives with the girlfriend and her mother. You know what I'm saying? So clearly they're having sex. So those walls of embarrassment and stuff, they've all been broken down. So my last statistics I'll give is this. Give is this. There was 1,000 people surveyed from 18 to 34, both men and women. 71%. This is an age group again from 18 to 34. 18 to 34. 71% said that they were satisfied with their sex life. 92% of those said that they preferred quality over quantity. 35% of those surveyed had tried anal. 20% had tried BDSM. In case you don't know what that is, that's the sadomasochism stuff. Tasha's nodding her head. 44% of them had, right. 44% had experiment with toys. 9% had experimented in group sex, and 49% had engaged in rough sex.
Is there any other way?
So there you go. I left these last statistics out there for a reason. This particular topic, it helped me to realize that millennials, they are not necessarily having less sex than we are, but I do believe that they have in their own way expanded and redefined what counts as sex. And so in their new sexual revolution, I think that they're far more adventurous than we were. I do think that ironically, they seek more emotional connections in a weird way, and they're unburdened by the taboos that we have. And so for that reason, I think all of those contributing factors we talked about make them a far more, for me, interesting group than I had previously went into and looked at. So from the beginning of this conversation, when I looked at them and I definitively had some thoughts about who they were, this made me look at them and understand them a little bit better in terms of now my jealousy for that generation. I don't look at it that way anymore. They're facing some unique challenges. They have some unique circumstances that I think have shaped why they're making their decisions. And believe it or not, it put me at peace, because up until this study, I looked at it as I was truly missing out on something. When I look at it different now, I have much more appreciation, believe it or not, for my generation and how we did things. I respect their generation a lot more for why they're doing things their way. So that's, for me, that was my takeaway. Anybody else?
Candace got me thinking right now. I just was sitting here thinking, because you got me thinking, Candace, because here my daughter about to go on vacation for her birthday, and I would not want her to be over no motherfucker balcony. But she calls me and be twisted early in the fucking morning, and I be looking like, "What are you doing?" Like, so
That,
I say to her, "Well, what you doing, Cherish?" Does she go, "Mommy, what goes on in Miami stays in Miami." I don't want to hear that. Candace, you got me thinking that.
That's women my age. Like, I'm getting close to 40. So when we have money, we can do that. The younger girls are not doing that.
Okay.
But it was the older women. I'm 38. I'm not ashamed to say my age. I'm proud of it. Mm-hmm. So we it's the women that can pay for it their own way, the cougars. That's what we want. So
I'm glad you said that, because so many times, though, again, it's thought that the men, it's not just men who have that spending power. Women are empowered now. They're not you said it, you're not ashamed of your age. Women are vocal about what they're looking for, what they want. And again, so for me, this particular show, even women younger than you, it made me look in and respect for them the position that they're in a lot more. They have a lot more choices, true enough, but they're mitigating those choices, I think, in some ways with being smart in their decisions. The numbers haven't astronomically jumped up all that much in some of the key categories. Tasha, you talked about sexually transmitted diseases. Yeah, they're up. They do. Going back to the beginning of this conversation, and what's the term again? The sneaky links. Mm-hmm. And so, they have their sneaky links, and we had our hookups. I would just say for them, that because they are more educated about STDs and stuff like that, I wish they would use more discretion when it comes to that. But they're no more dangerous and irresponsible than we were. In some ways, they're doing a little bit better job at it. Because I will say this last part. It's a hell of a thing for 18 to 24-year-old to be sitting up in the clinic with STDs than for a 40 and 50-year-old be sitting up in there with STDs when we ought to know better. And that's why I had to shut myself down, because I ought to know better. And that's real. So anyway, we finished a little early. Fantastic.
Like,
Fantastic.
I think has something else.
No, I was gonna say with the STDs, another thing that they're afraid of is the gift that keeps on giving, herpes. So that is like getting AIDS for them.
Correct.
So,
But at the same time, it don't stop them from fucking. Even if they get it, it don't stop them from fucking.
oh, and I wanted to say, when you said that how many partners they have, it is bad to have a high body count, is what they say now. So
Correct.
that is why they stick with one partner. They can do it.
It really does. It makes a difference. So absolutely. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Well, this coming weekend, I'll be doing a show by myself. My co-host won't be available, but she's hooking me up before she leave with enough hot topics to keep me going. So I appreciate that. We're gonna miss you, McMac. But at the same time, I know you. I want you to enjoy yourself. She's already got it planted in her mind that she's not gonna have a good time. I want you to enjoy yourself.
You better have a good time, Tasha.
Yeah.
Take a picture.
Y'all don't know her. Then we lost her. Y'all
No,
come back in a minute. Something must be wrong with her internet.
What?
But it's been raining, I know, in Memphis quite a bit. It rained here quite a bit today too.
Bacon.
But we'll get her back on a second.
Bacon.
Tasha don't like people. Tasha don't like events. She's been fussing. I was telling them, Tasha, you don't like people. You don't like events. You've been fussing about what you got to wear.
Oh.
Sweetheart.
What you wearing, Tasha?
Go and have a good time.
It is nothing special.
Oh.
Wearing a dress?
Who's wearing a dress? I look like a dude in a
I
dress.
just knew she was gonna wear a dress for this, but no.
Why you
I
ain't
look
wearing
like
a
dude in
dress?
No.
Tasha would be so sexy in a dress.
No, ain't nothing sexy about it in a dress. I feel so awkward in a dress. It makes no sense.
Are you serious?
I feel
You
super
would
awkward.
do it.
so, and for your age, I think you would look. Tasha would look so nice. Trust
She ain't gonna do it. She
And
ain't gonna do it.
and a
Be
nice
in there just, I
dress.
wouldn't know how to stand, what to do with my hands. I would just be weird in it.
Oh my God.
So I done already lost that fight, but I want you to go and have a good time. Free liquor, family, and off work. That's a hell of a combination.
That's a hell of a combination.
You know what I'm saying? So I want you to enjoy. So get your mind prepared for it, sweetheart. Enjoy your family,
And thanks for the link.
enjoy being on.
She sent me the link already, brother.
Oh Lord.
On the link, I'm about to get me a clit sucker. I want to be getting done while sucking on my clit. I'm trying something.
Okay, you know what? So there's no way for me to properly segue off of that note other than to say, sis, enjoy yourself too.
I sure am.
But I don't want to hear about it. But I don't want to hear about it.
Every detail.
I don't want to hear about it. I'll tell you that. God bless you. I love you and enjoy technology, sis. Hey, do
I
you?
know about that.
Do you? So it's been educational. It's been another great edition of Real Talk. Everybody, peace out. I'll see you on the other side on Saturday. Y'all have a good one.
All right, y'all. Bye.
Bye.